Well, introduce the show, though, eh?
I will. And we're live, bitches. Welcome to Honey Badger Radio number 82, Honey Badger Brigade versus Calgary Expo. Update, date. I'm joined here by Allison and... who is that? Is it Hannah? Yeah, Hannah's here too. And,
That's just a rumor. I might not really be here.
We're going to give you guys a scoop
ghost
on
of
what
Hannah's
the
past.
WTF is going on. So I guess
No,
I'm not
but
going to
first-
waste any more time. Yeah, but first a word from our Allison.
From your sponsor, huh? Okay. So let's look at some of the news. Some of the news from Kotaku in Action and Men's Rights Reddit, since they're both applicable to us, I suppose. Thanks to donations from Men's Rights Reddit, Austin, a teen boy prosecuted for child porn after receiving pictures from his girlfriend, and I believe Austin was also underage, won't go to prison or register as a sex offender. Unfortunately, his mistreatment is still not over, so if you're interested in helping Austin avoid jail or avoid all of the other calamities that may befall him for sex texting with his underage girlfriend when he was also underage, head over to Men's Rights on Reddit and maybe put a few shekels in the hat. In addition to that, another hate crime being spread by the media was faked.
Woohoo!
Apparently, a Muslim teenager claiming to have been attacked and left to die on a railway is being charged by police for filing a false report. I think this surprises no one. Maybe
No.
someone. Maybe a few people. But yeah, it's another one of those spat of everyone jumping on the hate crime bandwagon. I'm sure it does happen, but it doesn't help when you fake it, guys. So don't do that thing that this person did. Okay, let's see what else is going on in Men's Rights Reddit specifically. The film industry, specifically the Idlewild International Film Festival, gave Cassie Jay's The Red Pill documentary, and if you don't know who Cassie Jay is, she essentially was the feminist documentary filmmaker who was drummed out of her funding when she wanted to keep creative control over her documentary on men's rights, which was The Red Pill. And so she's been recognized for excellence in directing, excellence in producing, and best in festival award. Now, it's not a really big festival, but it is a festival of her peers, so that's somewhat significant that she's being given some kudos from her peers. And the coalition to establish a White House Council for Men and Boys is wanting to get a showing of the Red Pill documentary in D.C., and hopefully maybe entice Trump to take a look, which would be very interesting. Yes, indeed. And also, in addition, more news about the Red Pill. Along the route of Saturday's Women's March in Washington, D.C., Robert O'Hara has been putting up a series of posters advertising the Red Pill. So hopefully some women who are doing the march against Trump in Washington, D.C. will, well, let's face it, they'll probably just tear him down if they know what the hell that is. So, but at least they're up there. At least they're a thorn in the eye or the side or whatever, wherever thorns go. And finally, the Red Pill and Norwich was a success. And if you're interested in seeing some of the follow-up Q&A, head over to our very own Dr. Randomer Cams.
Randomer Can.
Yeah, Randomer Cams. What is it called? Channel.
Yeah, go to his channel. Dr. Randomer Chan is like some Rule 63 version of Dr. Randomer Cam.
Yeah.
Senpai.
A little bit more random. More random and more cammy.
Oh.
I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. All right. Okay. So, as you all may know, we came back from our trial. We were officially back on Tuesday. That's when we started up our shows again after the trial. And it was good news, good and bad. The good news is that the judge found that all of our claims had merit. That means we have a chance to win at trial. That's what a summary judgment is about. It's determining whether or not a lawsuit has any kind of chance to win at trial. And it was found that we did. Yay! But unfortunately, by the time all of the arguments of the summary judgment, for those of you who don't know, summary judgment is essentially an attempt to dismiss a trial based on it having no merit, so having no possibility of winning. So all of the even if the plaintiffs' claims were completely accurate, they still wouldn't win the causes of action, the legal statutes that they're suing under. But it was found we had merit. Fortunately, the summary judgment took so long. Oh my. Okay, but it took so. Jesus.
Sulu?
So I don't know what I'm doing now, Brian. Okay, let me try to reel this back. It took so long. The semantic and technical arguments took so long that we did not have enough time to have the actual trial. And the judge, and to be honest, once this trial got before a judge and he took a look at it, he informed us that this is probably going to be more of a 2 to 3 day trial. And we'd only had 1.5 days allotted to us. So no matter what, it was going to be delayed. But here we are. We have an official trial date of November 28th to the 30th, 3 days. And we're going to go ahead with it. And it was a very interesting experience. I'm going to start this this rendition. What would you call it? Overlook. What's a good word for this? Well, like it's a summary, but we're looking back. A debriefing.
This thing that we just did.
Yeah. Well, no. The thing we're doing now. What would we call it?
Oh, this is a summary.
Yes.
This is a debriefing.
A summary.
Yes, this is all of those things.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
But no judgment.
But no judgment. It's a summary without judgment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a summary in the winter.
Yeah. Okay, yes, and it's also a summary out of season.
It's like a summary consideration.
Mm-hmm.
A wintry summary.
So, one of the individuals who attended the trial, both days, is also on YouTube. Her channel is The Prim Reaper. And when I asked, she said she would give us a bit of an overview. She's not really a part of Honey Badger Radio. She did come to show support, but she isn't one of the gang, as the defendants called us.
Get down on it. Come on. Get down on it.
So if this is our gang, which one of us is Spanky?
Oh. Well, I mean, I'm a shark. That's what I'm saying. Because the sharks are just,
Okay, but
they are the best.
What would be the features of Spanky?
Oh, let's see.
Striped shirt.
Spanky would be, yeah. He was I guess Spanky was the leader of the gang, though, so.
Yeah. Striped shirt, a little bit on the chubby side, and he spoke as...
I have no fucking clue what you guys
we're referencing Little Rascals. I think that we need to come back to reality.
Yeah, we need to come back to this. Yeah, we got it. All right, so the Prim Reaper sent us just a brief email on her thoughts. First of all, okay, this is from the Prim Reaper. Quote, "First of all, I thought the process of the trial was incredibly interesting. Watching everyone present their sides and all the formalities and legalities involved with this really caught my attention. As for the specifics, I was struck with how many technicalities the other side's lawyer kept coming up with. They focused ridiculously hard on discrediting your side by pointing out how many times their name was gotten wrong, making very sure to specifically speak out amended every single time, which I thought was pretty unnecessary and condescending. All of that was pretty rich, considering even they messed it up one time on their own form. Like, whoops, sorry about that. Guess you'll have to make another amendment so that I can be sure to point out your incompetence at trial. Absurd. I know this is part of the legal maze that they like to run people through to try and catch you wherever they can, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel dickish. Especially considering when this didn't work out, they started throwing up more technicalities. Oh, you can't sue this company because they're based in New York, so Alberta has no jurisdiction over them. Okay, so I guess that's grounds for also throwing out the case against the Alberta-based company, right? Awesome. And then you should have sued under Honey Badger Brigade rather than Allison. Another name-based weasel tactic. It was clear the entire time that they didn't have a leg to stand on. Why else would they focus on all these legal loopholes and technicalities when you guys were just trying to give the cold, hard facts about what happened? The last thing that really bothered me about it all was the references to rape jokes and harassment. They just came right out and said that you guys were harassers without any examples provided. It just felt like a really shitty and embarrassing way to try to discredit you guys. Obviously, I'm not part of the trial in any way, but if I could have stood up at any point to call them out for anything, it would have been that. This was only the first time I met any of you guys, and you were so warm and welcoming to me that I felt that I'd known you for years. If any of the people on the other side of the argument took even 10 minutes to talk to you in person and get to know you, I would seriously hope that they'd see how ridiculous they were being to perfectly nice people and just have a different opinion from them. I strongly hope you guys win this case in November. From everything that I've seen, this is all about them trying to silence opinions they don't like and nothing about trying to prevent so-called harassment and inappropriate content. And as before, I'll be there to show my support for your cause. The Prim Reaper.
Nice.
That's a cool name. Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience. Oh my god, I didn't realize my video was on, but anyway, let's roll with it.
Well, come on now.
I forgot, actually.
Well, I can switch it. I'll make myself the focus.
Okay.
Why don't you, one of the things that we were talking about after the trial was how often Gamergate kept coming up.
Oh yeah.
What I wasn't able to go in because I was one of the witnesses. So, can you expand a little bit on that?
Essentially, they're really running with this idea that we are associated with Gamergate, or there's some sort of association. And to be clear, association has a meaning, has a very definite meaning. It means that there's a paper trail. There's you have to do membership dues. You have to be accepted. There has to be a way that they could not have you as a member. You really can't.
The term that they're using is affiliated, right?
Oh, affiliated. Yeah. Affiliated,
and they said specifically official, which I kind of think, I really strongly suspect actually that they're trying to use this not just as an argument in court, but to force Gamergate to be considered an official thing after all of the time that Gamergate supporters spent arguing there is no official thing, there is no official Gamergate, there is a hashtag and a discussion. And so it's an underhanded thing in two different ways.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, there is something that when you're affiliated, there has to be some sort of paper trail. There has to be some way that you could be excluded from membership, and you can't be. You can't be affiliated with a hashtag. An example I use is there's a bulletin board in our town that anybody can use, so anybody can post anything on it. I can't be affiliated with that bulletin board. Another example would be like a category in a library. I can't be affiliated with a category in a library. That's all a hashtag is. So there is no official affiliation or any affiliation with a hashtag. But anyway, they're trying to build up this idea that we are affiliated with a group that engages in harassment to defend their actions and getting rid of us. So,
yeah.
And of course, in our paperwork, we contested both notions. One, that there was any kind of official affiliation possible, and two, that it was a harassing group. So both things are being combated there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, because the problem is there is twofold. One, Gamergate, after this Freedom of Information Act from the FBI, we know for sure there's no actionable harassment there. So Gamergate didn't engage in harassment, which is amazing considering, like I said, it's basically a category in a library is the best way to approach it. And anybody can be part of it. But so that's pretty amazing. So Gamergate never
being harassed by periodicals.
It does sort of come down to that, doesn't it?
The encyclopedia is stalking me, and that means all periodicals are bad.
Because it has the word harassment in it.
And rape. The dictionary has rape, so I'm triggered. So see, and all reference books are bad. All reference books are bad.
Although, despite that, there people like Justin Trudeau have what he labeled it a hate group, and Brianna Wu is running for Congress, and Gamergate is one of her targets. So yeah, as soon as Congresswoman Wu gets in, I'm sure that Gamergate will be at the top of her to-do list of things she wants to stamp out forever.
Okay. Well, good
So,
luck. Good luck, Brianna.
I
Be sure to stock up on popcorn.
I just got to say though, you know, like after looking at that, like have you noticed that after Gamergate, and I'm not saying it's over because I think that this is a discussion that's still going on. The only thing that's changed is that the hashtag is basically blocked on Twitter, but people are still talking about the principles that Gamergate was founded on. Have you noticed that the people embroiled with the Gamergate discussion, and which started off as a discussion about, you know, journalism and collusion and corruption and all of that in just games journalism, have of their own accord moved on to basically tackle mainstream journalism and the mainstream media, and they're talking about the election, and they're talking about global politics, and, you know, things going on with the European Union, things going on in other sort of like major, you know, political movements and discussions, and there's the same people, you know. And I noticed that this, you know, I think a lot of people started following the crumbs to find out how bad is journalism? Is it limited to just games journalism? And they're learning that it's a lot of it. You know, whether you were just trying to see if Cassie J's The Red Pill is going to play in your area because you heard about it through someone, or if you heard about, you know, the Russian hackers or the Golden Shower Gate or whatever. It's all, I think it's all connected, and there is a lot of the same groups of people are watching all this stuff unfold, and it's fucking crazy, you know, when you go.
Do you mean that?
What?
Could you just clarify, because there's a couple points that I need clarification. First of all, wow, your dog sounds really human. When she coughs.
That's not my dog. That's my stapler.
The stapler. Okay, the stapler sounds, well, actually, that's even more remarkable, to be honest. Sorry, I got distracted. All right, so the first item is you're talking about the people in Kotaku in Action, right?
Well, not just, yeah, I mean, like, people in Kotaku in Action, people on YouTube, people, like, look at this. Computing Forever, as one example. He made a channel where he just wanted to talk about computers. Then Gamergate happened. Then he started to get involved with that. Now his channel is almost only about regressives and, like, the regressive left and the politics. And occasionally he makes tech videos. I look at Sargon. He did the same thing. He started off just sort of criticizing feminists. Then Gamergate happened. Then he was talking about that all the time. Then, now that Gamergate is, for the most part, there isn't much left to talk about, even though occasionally you have something that you need to bring up. He still discusses that stuff, but now he looks at, you know, politics and the media, mostly the media, on a scale well beyond games journalism. So what I'm saying is that people's involvement with the discussion around the media may have gotten their attention when things like Gamergate, Metalgate, Comicsgate, like those things were happening, but it's grown way beyond that. And I was just noticing that these same people are following this. It's sort of like they're looking, oh, how far does this rabbit hole go? And they end up like, holy shit, here I am, you know, talking about presidencies and the exchange of power and all that, where I didn't actually talk about it much, maybe 4 or 8 years ago. So it's just something I noticed.
Yeah, actually, the other thing that I've been noticing lately is how much actual men's issues stuff is on Kotaku in Action. Like, they're really sharp about calling this shit out.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's surprising. It's nice to see. And to be honest, I guess it isn't surprising, since misogyny, or the dreaded Saganese, was the primary weapon that the media used to sort of try to discredit Gamergate. So, I mean, once you pull that thread,
it was the media's weapon, and it was also the weapon of the individuals who were trying to sort of use Gamergate as their foil against which to damsel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it is interesting how it's sort of become much, much, much larger, and lots more voices being involved in this.
We were calling for it for a while too, like when we were making shows that revolved around events within Gamergate. we were also trying to draw attention to this as a media-wide, like it's a small part of a much larger problem with the media. And despite the fact we were trying to call attention to it, and it didn't appear to pick up, people were finding it on their own. They were finding, because when Gamergate happened, a lot of mainstream media was misreporting on it. Like right off the bat, they were basically like, yeah, it's women being harassed online. Thank you for ABC News, you know. So even the mainstream was getting it wrong. It wasn't just like these sort of essentially what games journalism is. It appears to be a bunch of ideologues that want to go into real journalism but can't, so they do games journalism, and they hate it because it's not, you know, they don't think they can save the world through games journalism, so they try anyway by writing like shitty ass politicized articles. Meanwhile, the people they aspire to be are doing it, but they're doing it on a global scale. They're doing it on the main stage. So, and I'm glad that we're seeing it.
And I think there was probably a process there too, because I mean the people involved in the like the letter writing, that the campaigns to advertisers and everything, those are all people that have a very genuine, not necessarily naive trust in human beings, not a naive faith in humanity, but they did have a genuine faith in the process. And I'm sure that there were more than a few of them who contacted various news organizations with corrections. You said this, we can prove that this is true instead, and that's an incorrect statement. You know, can you retract? Can you run a correction? And got no answers, or got back, you know, you're an idiot, don't write back here, and things like that. And I think just interacting with the media in terms of writing to them and in terms of comments probably taught a lot of people, if they didn't already know. Like, I think a lot of people that came into Gamergate with different perspectives. Like, there were people that came into Gamergate knowing full well the media is biased, and they just didn't expect it to extend to games media because there isn't anything to be biased over in that. And then I think that there were people that came into it still trusting that there were media outlets that, you know, they could rely on, and they learned that there weren't. But I think there was a bit of a process where they figured out that you can't even have a conversation with these media outlets, with the writers and the administrators of these media outlets, because their agenda is more important to them than even being perceived as accurate and unbiased. So they don't really care what you think of them. And that kind of hit home. Because I watched that hit home with a few people, and I watched some conversations happen about that, and it was like, I didn't expect it to be this blatant. I knew there were some problems, but holy shit, you know, that kind of thing. So, and it was neat to see something else happen with Gamergate. That was the new media that came out of it. You know, that there were people who were not doing any kind of journalistic coverage. They were just having conversations on the internet, that are now blogging about various issues, that are now, you know, sort of involved in political discussions and stuff like that. And it's neat to see new blood, you know, and actually clean blood in the media, and not huge biases and a great deal of dishonesty, but actual efforts at reporting the facts and letting people make up their own minds. I think that's one of the coolest things. There's so many cool things that came out of the whole phenomenon, but that's one of the coolest.
And to just bring it back to the trial, yeah, Gamergate was brought up. The narrative of harassment was attempted to be used. Most memorably for me was the moment where the defendant's lawyer, who was representing both the Mary Sue and the Calgary Expo, went up to the podium, that the judge put a publication ban on his client's addresses. And I actually spoke up and said, out of personal courtesy, that I, you know, just personal courtesy, not because I believe that anything is going to happen, but simply out of personal courtesy, that I would remove those the information. But the judge was like, yeah, you shut up. And let your lawyer speak, or your legal agent speak for you. And then Harry Capito got up and he said, "Nope." He noped that. He said that they're wrong. No. And he said that
your organization's terrible. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And he essentially said, that this isn't going to fly. I'm not going to. This is public information. And it had been like everything that we published is public information, so anyone could write to the courthouse and get it. And everything else is basically opinion. And we've been clear about that. But there's nothing that we have published that isn't publicly available. And Harry Capito said, the lawyer said that the lawyer for the defendant said they were engaging in a public smear campaign. And Harry said, well, you can comment. You have the right to comment in a case in public. And he also said that there's recourse if you feel like we're defaming you by publishing your own affidavit. You have recourse, and also that there's no evidence that any harassment has occurred. And the judge was like, this was possibly the most fun part of the trial, I have to admit. I don't think the judge particularly liked us, but he had a pretty funny statement when he was talking about this. He said to the defendant's lawyer, "My address is publicly on record. People could write to me over this trial." And then he said, and a while back, we had these things called phone books, which had their address in them. So I'm not going to grant your request for a publication ban on your email address, etc. And I'm also not gonna. I don't believe that here you actually have to show evidence of harassment.
Air horns.
You have to show evidence that these people actually harassed you, and there is no evidence that they engaged in harassment. So I'm afraid that I'm not going to grant you this motion to have to restrict the plaintiff's right to talk about the trial and publish your information, insofar as it's part of your affidavit. And that was really that was actually probably the highlight of the trial. Was wow, and it was an amazing moment. I'm like, wow, this is a place that requires actual evidence. This is in a court of law, you actually require evidence to charge someone with harassment and get it to stick. This is like the first moment since Gamergate happened that's been an experience that I've experienced, that you can't just assert things and have them be true because you're the media. You actually have to have evidence for it. And I think that was a little bit shocking for the defendants. Evidence? Sorry. I don't know if that's defaming.
I don't know. I imagine it probably did come as a bit of a shock because our detractors on all sides, our detractors as Gamergate supporters, our detractors as MRAs, our detractors as non-feminist women are all accustomed to whatever they say about us being the dominant narrative and being accepted by the people around them without question. And the only people that argue back are, of course, us. And it's easy to silence people arguing back if it's in an article and there's comments by just deleting the comments. And it seems to be fairly easy to do the same on social media, because if you control social media through mass reporting and things like that, like was done to Milo, and then it's easy to shut people up there too. So it may have come as a very big surprise at that point. They may have expected that since that narrative has flown everywhere else, that it was almost kind of a one of those moments similar to when Zoe Quinn called up that lady that was running the anti-harassment website. "Oh, I'm Zoe Quinn. You may know who I am." No, I can't think of what she was.
Oh my God. I get to see her doing that.
Yeah.
I'm Zoe Quinn. You may have heard of me.
Yeah.
You may,
that was
I know.
basically it. No, I haven't.
I'm kind of a big deal. I own lots of leather-bound books.
Yeah, and that's gonna happen. Like you step outside the conversation about the particular issues that we're involved in, and you step outside the specific conversation, that the part of the conversation that you've been involved in personally, nobody knows who we are. We're not that big and important. People who are not feminist and considering themselves nerds have no idea what any of the feminist nerd publications are. They aren't going to know, like the judge might have known previously about the Calgary Expo because it's actually, a big moneymaker for that area. But I'm sure he probably never heard of the Mary Sue. It probably was not something that, oh yeah, you sit and step off the bench and go on break and read the Mary Sue, girl power. No. So that probably did come as a bit of a shock.
Well, what's really interesting to me is Harry was of the opinion that the judge didn't particularly like us, and he may be correct. I think he might have been just trying to appear to be non-biased. But it was, even if he didn't like us, it was just court procedure. You need to have evidence before you can go forward with a claim. You can't just say, yeah, this is something that I believe in my subcoccular region, that this person engages in harassment. You have to actually have it. Yeah. Uh-oh, that's harassment. Okay. So it's like it was just basic legal reality. And like I said, it was just basic legal reality, and I think it was a little bit surprising for them. I don't want to defame them by saying anything. I don't even know. I think it was surprising. I don't know for sure. That's just my opinion of their reaction. That it was.
Well,
slightly
it's not
surprising.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's not a particularly negative thing to say, other than like it's stating that this is probably what this group was accustomed to. And now this very different thing from what they were accustomed to happened. Of course, then again, they did take publishing their own words as about themselves as a defamation campaign. So, what did they call it? Not defamation. Smear campaign. So apparently, telling the public what they did and what they've said about us and what the actual truth is, that we're able to show with recording and stuff like that. That's smearing them. But what they did was not bad.
Okay, so
Right.
Click Accept says, broadly speaking, was this court case a distraction or was it an important hill to climb? Well, we, just through this summary judgment, have set a precedent in which small businesses can now most definitely bring injurious falsehood into small claims court. So just with what we've done last Friday, just with what happened last Friday, we have increased the accessibility of justice for small businesses and sole proprietorships and artists and craftspeople. Anybody who doesn't have the financial means to go to the Court of Queen's Bench, they can now pursue justice in the small claims court for injurious falsehood because we have set the precedent.
And as long as their case meets the proper criteria.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as long as their case meets the proper criteria, but it's like this has made it more accessible. It's made it easier for it to be done, and that was one of the arguments that the defendant's lawyer had. Oh, this has never happened in this courtroom before, and as far as Harry knew, he was right. The defendant's lawyer was right when he said that this is a precedent-setting summary judgment to have an injurious falsehood case. An injurious falsehood case tried in the Alberta Civil Court. So it is definitely, like, at the very least, if we bomb in November, at the very least we have made justice more accessible to small businesses and sole proprietorships who are experience a larger organization defaming their business practices and their goods. So I don't know. I guess if you think it's okay for small businesses to have that gate and not be able to pursue that kind of redress when they're being attacked by corporations, larger corporations, I guess it is meaningless. It's just a distraction. But maybe, there'll be a small business in the future, or a sole proprietorship, or an artist who experiences this and actually is able to get justice because of what was done in the courtroom last Friday and the precedent that was set.
There we
I guess
go.
it just depends on where you fall on the line. Do you prefer to?
I think
Do
this
you
is a
prefer
really
to
big deal.
Do you prefer justice to remain unachievable for people of limited means? Do you prefer corporations to be able to lock people out of the legal system? If you prefer that, I guess it is just a meaningless distraction.
Well, we also have another question here, and it keeps flashing. It was Rauta Askell wants to know if we have a chance. And the answer to that is that the summary judgment is the judge's statement that we have a chance. That they were asking for a summary judgment partially on the basis that we could not win this case. And the judge said, no, this is a real case. They can win this. It has to go forward. You have to find out. So yeah, we have a chance.
Are the members of the public permitted to attend the November trial as well? Yes. And then click accept ads. No, I think you guys have a broader agenda. Yeah, my broader agenda is to pave the way for other small businesses, and specifically artists and creators, to be able to get justice when something like this happens. There's a lot of people out there who their livelihood is these conventions, and they're basically beholden to the convention's opinion of them and their politics and their beliefs and their religion and their person. And otherwise, and they have to toe the line, or they get excluded from these gigantic marketplaces, which are often the only place that they can sell their wares. So I want to make sure that they have as much protection of law as possible. So that is my broader agenda, to make sure that this doesn't happen again. If we have a victory, to make sure that this doesn't happen again, at least slap their wrist so they don't engage in this behavior to another person. In fact, the defendant's lawyer said something to the effect of, well, what is the point of this case when the plaintiff won't win anything more? Like, they'll be paying more in legal fees than they'll actually win in the judgment. Well, the point isn't the money. Surprise, surprise. The point is to try to make justice more accessible to people who are of limited means. That's it.
Now,
the point is to defend creators' rights.
Our situation is, if you're going to deplatform us, don't make a contract that says you're not, and then take our money, because that's not a very good strategy.
Yep. I think that we actually have a pretty good chance. Maybe I'm an optimist, but if I didn't think that we would have a good chance, the Calgary Expo / Mary Sue would not have tried to block us right off the bat. And I think they were banking on that. I think that was basically, for them, that was a sure thing. They were basically like, okay, we're going to lock them out. They're not going to have a case, and that'll be it. Then we won't have to worry about this anymore. And when that did not work, which I think might have been the only hand they had at the time, now they actually have to present evidence and actually go through with this trial. I think that now we have the advantage, and I think we could take it.
Although I did have that really depressing dream in which you told me that we failed our trial, Brian.
Yeah, that's more your anxiety than a prediction of reality. But that's what I'm going to say for now. We'll see.
That's just how dreams work.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's just how dreams work. If you're anxious about something, then you dream about about losing something, or about monsters, or about something bad happening.
Yeah, it's probably nothing. But anyway, I'm just putting it out there.
It's usually a message delivered by a dog, so I get it.
There you go.
Yeah.
This court stuff is stressful.
Yeah, it is very stressful. It's unbelievably stressful.
MIS 315 asked what was the verdict. The verdict was in our favor. The judge did not dismiss the case. It goes on. We go to trial in November, and he did say we have a case.
Somebody in the comment also said, what I'm saying is you might win quietly, but we hope you win loudly with fireworks. That's click accept also. There is a win quietly possibility. I had a feeling, and I still have a feeling, that the Mary Sue / Calgary Expo might especially if they really think they might not win, or at the very least, they just don't want attention drawn to themselves based on the case. They may try to settle out of court. This is a prediction that I have. But if they do, I am of the opinion that we should definitely not, because that basically is them saying we might not win. And if anything, they should lose in front of everyone if this is what's going to happen. So
No, there's not going to be a settlement.
no.
The point is to make justice more accessible to others, to try to attempt to make them think twice before they do this again. You know, and that's really where I'm coming from. And that's why I did this. I sure as hell didn't do it to get money, like a lot of people are alleging. And then other people are saying, yeah, that's right. You pay a lawyer. You engage in a lawsuit to make bank.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
It is kind of funny to have the trolls saying we're in this for the money, and then have the other side in the case say, well, they're not even going to win enough to make this worthwhile. They're going to spend more than they win. You know, like, which is it? Are we doing it for the money, or are we going to spend more than we win? Because you can't have it both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. You can't have it both ways, and anyway. So yeah, this is to set a legal precedent. This is to help out other small creators when they sort of go up against the system and the expectation that their beliefs conform, or they don't, or they lose career opportunities and network opportunities. Oh, there's other stuff from the trial. I'm just a little bit blanking on it right now, but do you want to take a break for a sec?
There's one more question here, and it's jumping again. Let me see. Christian Chasen says, did the judge have any words for the defendant after examining the case in more detail, taking your money, and it jumped again, taking your money before breaking the contract has got to be pretty bad from a legal standpoint?
Well, to be honest, I don't think he was just looking at the affidavits. The affidavits aren't evidence and aren't really evidence. So he had an overview, but I don't think he could regard what was put in the affidavits as evidence. So he didn't have much to say about the evidence. And again, I don't think he was disposed towards liking us. Not that it really matters at all. But you know, it may have been him simply being impartial. So there were words, but I'm not sure I would want to read too much into it. He didn't really make a judgment on the actions that were taken in the case, just whether or not the case had merit.
And it's probably going to be something that won't get addressed anywhere until we have our day in court, or days rather, because he did assess that it's going to take at least 2, possibly 3.
Yeah. So it's like the judge. The only thing that was really there were a few things that were positive. Him saying, yeah, you have to have evidence of harassment before I grant you the right for a publication ban, and you don't have any, which might have been a comment on what he was reading in the affidavit. And there was some other stuff, but I think maybe we could go into a bit of a break and then come back and discuss the final thoughts on this.
Sure. When you say break, what do you want me to do? Play this video?
Well, no. Let me speak first, because I have a bit of a shill.
All right.
Everybody leaves. Okay. So last year around this time, I set a goal for myself of increasing our per episode Patreon amount by 100 in 1 month. In the month of February. This year, I'd like to try, like all of us, to try to do better. I'd like to get us up and over the goal of 2,000 per episode by the end of February. That means I got to convince 20 of you to give $25 per episode a month, or 100 of you to give $5 an episode a month. I think that's doable. But I want to try to increase this because it's important. I believe now more than ever that what we talk about on Honey Badger Radio is a necessary part of the conversation. And by conversation, I mean the entire conversation, not just the gender conversation, the political conversation. Well, more like the screaming match with guns drawn happening right now in the US. The conversation about ethics and media's creators' rights and censorship, ideology, morality, how we can get along and cooperate, all of that. In my opinion, what we talk about here on Honey Badger Radio is the overlooked key to it all. So if you're not currently supporting, please drop me a line at topic@badgerpod.com and tell me what it would take to convince you how important it is that this conversation be heard as widely as possible. And if, when you ask yourself why you don't support us, the answer is why not, you can go to www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. No donation is too modest, and no matter what you pledge, you'll get access to hours and hours of special content. Like the special content we're going to have after the show that'll involve Gamergate and the Brigade of Bitches that are apparently out to get Zoe Quinn. Or is it Bjarni Wu?
And bikers. I have a thing about bikers that I want to talk about, yeah.
It's one of those literally who's.
Yeah, it's one of the literally who's. Okay, so this letter is from GA. Dear Honey Badgers, first, if you use my letter on air, please don't use my real name. I want to get into voice acting, and many companies in the U.S. voice acting field, as of late, have been working hand in hand with the regressive left. And just to add to this, we do know someone in the art field who cannot actually publicly associate with us because he might lose his job. So this is big. Not just about men's rights. It's also about creative freedom. That being said, I have much to say. I've always enjoyed your shows and thought to myself when Allison would make a pitch during that big fundraising drive because money was more needed than usual, mostly for the Badger Cave, that I would donate. I thought, when I'm no longer in poverty, before I live on meager means, I will donate. Then one day it occurred to me, what if everyone who says that stopped saying that and said, I will give something so the cause may move forward? That is when I pledged my support. We disagree a lot on many topics, but we agree that something needs to be done for men's rights. You don't use the platform to push any other ideal other than men's equal rights. That is one of the many reasons I respect you all. You all have sacrificed so much just to ensure my rights as someone born with XY genes. You all have inspired me. I am limited as to how much I can speak out and to what extent and to how much I can donate. In addition to that, I cannot draw very well, but I can write. Ideas for inventions and stories spontaneously are created in my brain, and then plots around those ideas start building. I would love to create a manga or comic book with the help of the Honey Badgers about a female superhero that is based around and fights feminism and gynocentrism and fights for men's rights. Please give me a reply to my proposal. With much love and gratitude, GA. Well, thank you for that email. I'm glad we could inspire you to help out and also inspire your writing, because it is important to get these ideas out in as many ways as possible. And that includes artistically. And to be quite honest, I think the ideas that we talk about deepen our understanding of human nature and what it is to be a man and a woman. Therefore, they make art better, not worse. And I'll let Brian take it away from there.
Okay.
Yay.
And by the way, because you want to make that as a book, I think that would be a great idea. I'd like to see it, but consider the precedent that we are talking about, especially if this is all about that, basically. If you wanted to go to a con and support Gamergate or make it a comic that's kind of critical of feminism or anti-feminist or whatever, or a men's rights book, you could get evicted, thrown out, not given a platform, even if the place is publicly funded, whereas freedom of speech is protected in those areas. Consider that a book like that should be allowed to exist. This is a conversation that should happen. So I think that what we're doing with this legal case is completely related to that. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking.
Hannah wishes to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, I have something to point out related to that too. Okay. And it's, I guess you can call this sort of a self-righteous statement, but it's also a true statement. And it's one of the reasons, I guess you could say, that I align myself with Gamergate supporters, with men's rights activists, with anti-social justice warriors, I guess you could call us, with anti-feminists. We don't limit our defense of your right to speak to you just saying things we agree with. Like these platforms, these various platforms, not just the ones that we're dealing with in this court case, but pretty much everywhere, whether it's social media, whether it's like there were other expos that looked at things like banning Gamergate related t-shirts and things like that, whether it's having a job in a particular entertainment industry. These organizations are quite happy to ban viewpoints that they disagree with, or to ban people that are associated with viewpoints in any way that they disagree with. Your brother or your sister could have wrongthink in their eyes, and even if you say, well, that's theirs, I'm not part of that, you could lose your job. You could get kicked out of wherever you're involved with. If you have in your history any kind of an activity that they disagree with, you get booted. But at the same time, they have no problem suing business owners to force them to do business, even if, say, in terms of the bakery that didn't want to make the cake for the gay wedding, they have no problem suing those folks and saying, no, you have to give us a platform. You have to accept us. So it's very hypocritical on the part of social justice ideologues, progressives, feminists, any of the folks that are, I guess, the opposition, if you want to call it an us versus them mentality. There's the only our thought should be spoken type think, and then there's the everybody deserves a platform and these ideas should stand or fall on their own merits or lack thereof type of platform. And I guess that's one of the big things that made me want to be a part of these groups, is that that's the platform I identify with, is, ideas should stand or fall depending on merit.
What's up with the waifu, Brian?
What? There's no waifu here. What are you talking about? Nobody can see it. What are you talking about?
Nobody can see the waifu. It's the invisible waifu with light brown hair and a sailor suit.
Okay.
Or just school uniform.
Changing things
which
up
looks
a
like
bit.
A sailor suit.
Ready for the video?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Let's see it.
Okay. Well, you're not going to be able to see it, unfortunately. But I will play it for everyone else.
Hey, here's your refill, lady. Eat nothing but caffeine, sugar all day. Now, what do you got, purple here?
Women control just as much spending as men. You only had to earn 73 cents to spend that dollar.
Hey!
Oh God, no! My face! I can taste my face!
Okay, that's the end of the video. And we're back.
Did you actually, was there sound? Because I didn't hear sound.
I told
you. Okay, guys.
Wait, you guys should have been able to hear it. What?
Did you guys hear it? This is like a new thing that we're trying, like doing a little bit of shaking it up, putting in some interesting animation in the middle of stream. So just tell us, guys, in the chat whether or not you were able to hear the animation that we put through. And if you can see, my God, Brian, your eyes, this freaking waifu, you look like you're drugged.
No,
and now you look pissed at me.
She's a tsundere, so she's annoyed. Do you see that? That's annoyance. If I could, I'd just
it looks like more like
twitch.
Stoned.
What the fuck? Okay, I'm gonna switch it back so you can comment on it.
There was sound. Okay, great. Awesome. I'm glad that it worked out. And by the way, we're going to do a thank you to Stefan C., who is our animation slave. And he has a little room, and we give him a little desk, and he draws. And we occasionally feed him bread and water. But the water has spiders in it because we don't want to be too nice to him.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
There are people who eat spiders. That might actually... Protein! That might actually be good. I mean, how big are the spiders?
Maybe like Australian spiders, so Australian wolf spider size. So we give them like a bowl of water, dog water, and in the Australian wolf spider sort of doing the backstroke in it. It's we don't want to make him think that we like him.
Spider having a stroke. That's
No,
cruelty.
backstroke. He's like I guess it would look like a spider having a stroke.
What?
All right. Yeah, somebody is typing. Somebody's doing the aggressive typing on stream again.
It's not me.
All right.
No, I
All
just
right,
probably have my mic turned up too high.
All
I mean,
right.
you
Okay.
sound fine.
So-
It just might be picking up more stuff. But
Shall
Yeah.
we dive back into the wolf spider water?
what does that have to do with? Okay, yeah.
You're just gonna roll with it, aren't you?
I might as well. 7:58. Go ahead. Spider wall.
All right. Well, I mean, we don't have to be much longer. I just wanted to say that before we continue, and I have to get this out for everybody who doubted Harry Capito as our lawyer. I am now 100% sure we wouldn't have gotten this far without him. Because it was incredible to watch him work in the courtroom. It was he's the kind of lawyer. He's like the legal agent that people should probably spend, like, they should spend money to go and sit in like a glass box and just watch him work. Like, they have celebrity chefs where you just go to this kitchen and you get to watch them. He was that good, and it was really awesome to see him in like full battle mode. And like I said, 100% sure now that we wouldn't have gotten this far without him. So if Harry's listening, which I know you're not, but anyway, I send the emotional vibes. Thank you, Harry. Thank you for taking on this case and for sticking with me throughout all my nervousness and bullshit and not getting things ready. Although I did get things ready in time, but there were some moments there where it was touch and go. Just because I was having trouble even looking at the shit that I had to pour through to get this case together. But yeah, thank you again for taking on this case. And to anybody who had their doubts, yeah, shut up now. This guy is the real deal.
Be silent.
Be silent.
I mean, continue to share opinions, and we believe in freedom of speech. But you're wrong.
You're wrong. You were wrong. You were so full of wrong. He was when he was working. And yes, we set a precedent. We set a legal precedent to have injurious falsehood tried in an Alberta civil court, and the defense was arguing that it was too close to defamation to be tried, which whatever. But when he was doing this, he was working like he was playing like speed chess with law, and he was getting these legal statutes, these legal precedents, these legal cases on the record, and he was basically closing doors and hurting the judge to the decision that he wanted the judge to make. And I didn't even get it until retrospect, until after the judge made that decision, because for me it was just this terrifying experience, and the things, it was just like zipping around and shit, and wow, it was like being in a wind tunnel except with bureaucracy. But it was an amazing experience, and I feel that, like I said, we couldn't have gotten this far without him. And because of that, it's really, on a personal level, having gone through this experience with what Carrie is a classical liberal, I've really had to actually rethink some of my attitude towards the left, and what the left wants to do. And I mean, I still, their authoritarianism and all that jazz, it's no good. But on the other hand, that desire to see the underdog be protected, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's something that should be respected and not derided. And it's been sort of a personal journey for myself, because I can't sit here and be defended by someone who's very, very much on the left and not change or at least question some of my opinions. And I know Hannah wants to say something to that, so I'm going to let her do that.
Well, there's two things. First, I don't want anybody to take the description of Harry's expertise as a statement on anyone but Harry. That what Allison described there is what a good lawyer does in court, because a judge has to consider all of the various available angles. and it is the lawyer's job to close off the angles that are irrelevant or that the law says are not applicable to the case and things like that. And that shows the judge which avenues are available to make a decision. So it's not a statement on either the judge or anyone on the other side. It's just that Harry did that very adeptly, very expertly, and really anybody that was criticizing our choice to go with him is we've been validated and vindicated on that. And the other thing is, there is good and bad in both the left and right. That's something I think we've mostly acknowledged. We specify the regressive left when we talk about the left, and we specify the authoritarian right when we criticize the right too. And this is a situation where, we're dealing with. I think probably a lot of people have seen sort of the grid that has left and right, and then at top and bottom it has authoritarian and libertarian. And a lot of us sort of fall on both sides simultaneously of that left-right map, but closer to the libertarian end. And I think we see it more when the authoritarian left takes action, because they've been in power for one way or another for quite a long time. And I think that's probably where we end up being surprised when we find somebody who is at the libertarian end of that spectrum and mostly left and isn't at our throats. Because usually when we find someone who's mostly left, they're at the authoritarian end, because those are the loudest lefties. Just like the loudest righties are at the authoritarian end. But for the last few decades, aside from having some presidents and a couple of short years, in control of Congress of the United States, they've been mostly out of power. So they just yell. Whereas we see the control left as, I can't think of who it was on Reddit put it that way, the control left and the alt-right. We see the control left's effect on the world more.
Pepe!
Yeah, at least now, especially since they pretty much control the media. And it's, like the use of, more people that we've identified as marginalized groups in order to push a narrative is actually an exploitation of them. There has to be a better way than what we're seeing currently. Because, I have to, God, those moments in the courtroom where I was being defended by Harry, it was pretty, it's a moment, I don't want to say white knight in shining armor, but I was not in a situation where I had the ability to fight back, and he took up that standard and he did it for me. And I have to recognize that comes from a place of great compassion for people who are being marginalized. And I have to respect that about him, and I know that comes from his liberal values. So when I see that, I have to see that there is something good there. And yet we see almost like this tone deaf, one note approach to protecting people who are disadvantaged. Or supposedly disadvantaged, to the point where it's really not about bringing them up, but keeping them down so that you're in a constant state of supposedly bringing them up. If black people aren't oppressed, then how can they be saved by white people? If women aren't oppressed, how can they be saved by men? So we have to maintain this perception so that they can be in a continuous state of needing to be saved. And that maintaining that perception and keeping them in a continuous state of needing to be saved is part of why they're experiencing the disenfranchisement. So, when I say this, I'm not deriding the conservative mindset, which is more about creating a system where people can achieve. The principled conservative or Republican mindset, which is about maintaining a system where the most amount of people can achieve through their own merits. But at the same time, there are still people in every system we've ever had is not perfect. It's not a utopia. So there are always people who fall through the cracks. And it seems like that, we need those people who will champion them, but champion them in a way that doesn't necessarily destroy the system itself. Because like Republicans and conservatives will say, order benefits the greatest number of people. Even if there are people who fall through the cracks, the fact that we have an ordered society means that, you know, we're not all living in our own feces, throwing rats at each other. You know, it's a way of benefiting the greatest number of people. And even though people do fall through the cracks, you can't get away from that.
You know, I think we could call the exploitative end of the savior phenomenon political Munchausen's by proxy, because it's a similar behavior to Munchausen's by proxy, where you have to hurt the people that you're purporting to take care of and purporting to rescue in order to keep them dependent on you for their health and their safety and so on. And at the political end of it, for their freedom, for their recognition as human beings. And if that ends, you lose your meaning and you lose your prestige in the world. And I think it's not necessarily specific to a political outlook. I think you can find this just about anywhere. It's anywhere that you can find a victim narrative. You're going to find people who are unwilling to acknowledge and continually looking for more pitiful and tiny ways to create the victim narrative. They won't acknowledge progress, or they'll take credit for progress insofar as it goes, but always say there's still a lot of work to be done, you know, and they'll get to a point where instead of fighting for equal recognition of human rights, they're fighting for the ability to force other people to change how they're living their lives to sensibilities of the exploiters among them, you know, or they'll fight to demonize ordinary things that the other person does, that the outsider does. And you see that with feminism, and you see it with people who exploit sympathy for civil rights movements that were based in ethnicity and that were based in history and everything. You see that with religion. You see that with anti-religion. You see it with everything. You know, it's as soon as somebody finds out that they can exploit a victim narrative for power and prestige, all of a sudden there will be people who will take it too far like that. And like, that's one of the reasons, even though I'm not saying we're going to do that, you know, that's one of the reasons I always say it's important to scrutinize all of us, all the people in the movement you're involved in, including the leaders, and especially the leaders and the people that, you know, came before you, or the people that are like the public face and everything. You can't let that happen among us, because the second it does, it ceases to be a human rights movement, and it starts to divide, and the human rights part of it goes off and does their thing, and the exploitation end of it becomes the public face.
I was thinking, you know, Harry, like I said, is a classical liberal, but he does use the system itself to try to help people who are marginalized by the system. So it's an interesting situation, because he's using law. And honest to God, I think he was drummed out of the legal system because he's too good. And the whole situation, first of all, the whole situation reeks to high heaven. He was basically charged for not keeping his paperwork correctly. And I know from experience he's not really good with paperwork. But, you know, and even the fact that during his trial, his hearing, have him disbarred as a lawyer, there were 3 judges hearing it. And one of them recused himself because he said he didn't want to be part of this miscarriage of justice of trying Harry and getting rid of his legal right to practice law. And it just after this experience, it feels like he was drummed out because he was just too good at what he did. And he just didn't know exactly how to play the game. What they said was he was unmanageable, and I can see that as well. But law isn't about this kind of posturing. It isn't about the 3-piece suit. It isn't about, the money, the $800 an hour lawyer. It isn't about making money. It's about defending people's rights. Isn't that a surprising thing to say? That's what law is supposed to be about. And he really made it about that. And I think in a lot of ways that ended up, I don't know, feeling like an affront to the people who think law is about this kind of social posturing, rather than maintaining people's rights. Anyway. Do we want to continue? Are there some other items that we can cover with the trial?
Well,
let me think if there's there's one other interesting point where the judge actually mentioned the potential collusion between the Mary Sue and the Calgary Expo. That was in the affidavit. It wasn't entered in as evidence, but it was in my affidavit. And that was interesting to see that actually acknowledged, that it doesn't really matter when the when the article is published if you're in constant communication with each other prior to it being published. Oh man. Anyway, so
yeah.
that was one thing that I found funny.
There were some bits where
I'm sure it helped that they were using the same lawyer.
Yeah.
They couldn't have done, any better at that if they had arrived in the same car. We're not together, but we arrived in the same car.
We're not colluding, but yeah, it's the same lawyer.
So yeah, that was.
And that's just an observation, an opinion. I don't mean to defame anyone.
No, but that was very unstrategic. Just saying.
Yeah, just saying. Just saying.
That was a whoops moment. That's all.
Yeah, it's a
whoopsie.
bit. I think it was a convenience moment, and I did notice that the defendant's lawyer was very confident. I walked past him at the during our first recess for food, and he seemed extremely confident that he would get the summary dismissal. Like he would get the case dismissed. Less confident after the second day, I'll have to confess. I think for obvious reasons. And it was, it was a very interesting experience. I have never been to court before, and this is my first time. Very interesting experience. The judge made some jokes. I didn't actually laugh at them because I was so I was like shaking at some points.
Literally shaking?
Literally shaking. Well, it's a scary experience. Everything is so formal, and you don't know what's going to happen.
You're afraid you're just going to take a dump on the table. I know that feeling.
You could pull down my pants. Oh my God, we're not supposed to do that
You're gonna
here.
need to sneeze like in the middle of something really important being said. And you can't fight it, so you try to maybe stifle the sneeze as you're doing it, and then it ends up blowing like a handful of snot all over like the row in front of you or something. Or it gets on the judge's gavel. Just the worst possible scenario. You stand up to basically give your testimony, your pants fall down.
Every stupid nightmare, right?
Yeah.
You arrive at the court and you're naked.
You forgot your clothes.
How the fuck did that happen?
Yeah.
It's just a manifestation of nervousness, right? I was in such a hurry, I just climbed out of bed and came right here. No, it is nerve-wracking to be, it's nerve-wracking to be in front of a judge in traffic court. And, yes, I admit I have been in front of a judge in traffic court a couple of times. I'm not going to say how many. I'm a good driver, but I've been in front of a judge in traffic court anyway. But it can be very discombobulating to be, because you're acutely aware of the amount of authority that the judge possesses and why, and so on. And that's something that you can rise above when it's other people. If you're standing in front of a crowd of people talking, even me with my bizarre stage fright, I like to talk, but not in front of other people who are looking at me. But it's not the same when it is somebody who has that degree of, it's not necessarily power, because when you're like, even when, like I say, even traffic court, that degree of authority, it's, the person is bigger than you in a way that other people can't be bigger than you, and that is very humbling. It's not necessarily intimidating to the degree that standing in front of like a mountain lion would be intimidating, but it's humbling.
Yeah, it is humbling, and it's I actually appreciate the judge quite a bit. I mean, I think that even if he wasn't predisposed to us, I think he was fair, and he did give us everything we asked for, so that's good. Except for we didn't get like the travel funds refunded. I'm not sure why that was. Maybe because he was annoyed at something we did, like being late. Possibility, don't know. Or he just was like, I'm giving you everything, I'm gonna not give you this one thing because reasons. But anyway, it was definitely an interesting unique experience. So we're going to trial November 28th to the 30th. See you then. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that came out of that.
That should, in theory, be the end.
Yeah, it should, in theory, be the end.
This should be the end, unless they find like a new way to drag shit out. But I don't think that's gonna fly. So this should be it. The saga of the Badgers versus the Calgary Expo and the Mary Sue. By the way, I do have like that recording. I don't know if it'll sound okay, but I have that recording of the lawyer basically summarizing his thoughts. But didn't he say something about this was something that was okay because we specifically told him to only say stuff that can be shared, and he mentioned the collusion between the Calgary Expo and the Mary Sue is pretty definite. He said that in the thing at the end. Do you remember that conversation?
Was this Harry saying it?
Yeah, Harry said that. Yes, he said there was definitely collusion between the Calgary Expo and the Mary Sue. So we aren't just fighting against the Calgary Expo; we're fighting against the Mary Sue as well.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to disagree with that. I mean, even if you look at what's really interesting is the defendant's lawyer set another date for exchange of evidence documents, and I was like almost ready to say, hey, yeah, feel free to give us more evidence for our case, because that's snotty. But anyway, the best evidence that's come out of this case that has been given to us by the defendants, which has been really interesting. The evidence of the deprecation of my goods, like calling them offensive, like I would take a bunch of offensive material and try to sell it at a convention that's all ages. The fact that they entered into evidence that the Mary Sue, that Sam Meggs who was the editor of the Mary Sue at the time, was actually acting in her capacity as editor of the Mary Sue at the Calgary Expo. And at that point, it's like, yeah, you can't deny that there's collusion going on, and that came from their evidence. And then the evidence of my application with Honey Badger Brigade listed as the company, which they submitted into evidence. It's like, okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate it. I think I should send you like your defense lawyer an honorarium or something as thank you for
a cute little thank you card with like
or some flowers.
Yeah, maybe some.
Really
chocolates.
Appreciate your work helping us.
Send them one of those those Valentine's cards that kids give each other, where you buy like a whole bag for $1.99, and it's a bunch of like, DC superheroes. It's like handing out Valentine's. You're a wonderful friend from Wonder Woman.
Yeah, put something with comic book heroes on it. Yeah. That would just be so appropriate.
Yeah, I know, right?
Honestly, though. They probably won't make that mistake again just because of how it came back to bite him in the ass in that particular hearing. So it's perfectly fine. It's not giving anything up. It's not a boo-boo to talk about that. So it's not bad, but it is funny. And
yeah, it is.
I think both sides learned things about this particular level of the system at the trial, and it'll probably both of us are going to be fighting harder, and I think both of us are going to improve our own strategies. Hopefully we'll improve ours more than they improve theirs. I think we will. But yeah, I think that was probably a lesson for them.
Oh, yeah.
We had our lessons, they had theirs.
Yeah, and lessons were learned. It's all good. It's too bad that, we couldn't just shake hands and say, you know what, why don't you just apologize for fuck's sake?
Well, we tried that first.
Yeah, I know. But it's like, Jesus Christ, why? Like, we're not really that bad of people. Just say, yeah, you can come back. Maybe we'll give you a panel to discuss shit. And let's just make the best out of this. I mean, even now, they could walk away from this and smelling better than what they're smelling now. I don't know if I'm saying shit. I'm talking off the cuff.
No, I don't think so, because I think you're right. Even now, it could be, there could have been resolution. I don't think that's going to happen, though, because no entity that's gone this far in court admits fault. But in any case, the bottom line is that it went very well for us. And, we probably won't have it quite this easy again. But what we learned from this stage will be very useful at the next stage. So it won't matter that it won't be quite as easy.
Max, I may be a men's rights activist, but I would like to, at all costs, pursue the win-win.
Yeah. And you know what? I think it would have been fascinating to some people, at least, to see a discussion between a group like us and a group like the panel that was discussing women into comics, if both sides of the group were open to each other enough that they didn't either tear each other's throats out or whine about being harassed. And it would be a good discussion. The problem is when it comes in where one side thinks the other side doesn't have the right to talk.
Yeah. The other thing is that we've had those discussions, because I'm not lying when I say that Harry is a classical liberal. Like, we went out to dinner and we spent the whole dinner arguing over men's rights. But at the end he said, you made a good case. So there you go. So those kinds of conversations would be fascinating. And incoming slander alert. That panel that the Calgary Expo put on, Women into Comics, boring. So boring.
Oh, I bet.
No, the first 15 minutes, boring as hell. I don't know if they're going to get me on defamation for that, because I'm telling them that their panel is boring, or maybe I'm harassing them somehow. The panel was fucking boring. And the panelists were dying up there. They were dying. When I stood up, part of the reason why I think they said, okay, yeah, talk, was because
they were choking.
They were dying. They were choking.
Yeah.
I half stood up because I'm like, oh God, I can't watch this anymore. This is painful. Let me just recover your panel here, inject some interest into it so that you don't die. It's like watching you flop around like a dying fish on stage. Is that defamation? I don't know. That's my opinion of what was going on. Half of the reason, like I said, half the reason I stood up was because we got to make this interesting. Like, and watching them fail to make it interesting was getting less and less interesting.
Well,
I didn't mean to disrupt anything. I just meant to make it a little more interesting.
Spark more conversation.
Yeah, and I don't think I did disrupt anything, because, if I hadn't stepped up, I think the panel would have ended then. That we would have had literally 10 minutes of people staring at each other. What do we do next? What do we talk about next?
What do we complain about next?
Yeah, and I think the same thing might be true if we went to an expo like that and had a panel just on
men.
Just on complaints about the way men are treated in a particular nerd community.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that would be very exciting to anybody who is not embroiled in men's issues discussion. I think anybody that was just a layman to the men's issues discussion would be like, why are we listening to this? This is not what we came here to do. And although we had interesting things at our booth and we had interesting conversation at our booth and everything, I honestly wouldn't have advised us having a panel like the panel that they were having, the Women into Comics panel. And so it's not a specific thing to feminism to say, hey, feminism doesn't belong there or something like that, and these guys are just naturally boring in general. It's that the venue isn't going to be excited about the topic. And, answering that particular question, that actually gave people some back and forth to have. That's why I was saying, it might, where neither one of us would be too exciting to the layman on our own, it might actually be interesting to some people to see two groups with an opposing viewpoint on the political direction this particular set of hobbies should go and what it does or does not accept within the community. The two groups that are arguing about it might actually get some play. And it probably wouldn't be dramatically more exciting to people. There would probably still be a lot of people that would be like, we just came here to look at comic paraphernalia. Just different things. I came here to show off my costume that I spent 6 months making, not listen to this shit, But there would be, I think, a lot more likely to be people interested in a back and forth like that than one side of the story or the other.
Well, I'd have to say that the audience certainly took, they say I was disruptive. I don't see that at all, because I spoke to a topic that they brought up. I say it was boring, and I stood up and I spoke to it partially because, I wanted to make it a little bit more interesting to myself, at the very least. But after I said my piece, everybody else sort of stampeded in there. I mean, there was a hell of a lot less politeness going on from the other people in the audience than me, myself. I asked to speak. They just were like, yeah, I'm speaking now, and just bulldozed through. And the different perspectives actually made it more interesting. And I think it was, I don't know, I think it was a very bad idea from a standpoint of entertainment to have a bunch of panelists so similar in their viewpoints. Because it was dying in the first 15 minutes. And you almost felt bad, because it's hard to be on a panel like that and maintain people's interest when there's absolutely nothing going on. And it's like, yeah, it's sort of sucky to even set people up into that situation. You gotta introduce at least a little bit of conflict. Not maybe conflict's the wrong word. A little bit of what's a good word?
You have to provoke a little bit of thought.
Yeah, just provoke a little bit of thought. Not necessarily, just provoke some thought. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to sustain something for a full hour.
Which kind of makes that a learning experience too. I don't know, probably the presenter may have developed more of a style than that later, or may have gotten out of, I don't know what happened with the panelists since then, but it could be that led to change. But either way, the fact that it only lasted about 5 minutes, the back and forth only lasted about 5 minutes, and the fact that nobody stood up and threw things, nobody screamed and yelled and stamped their feet and waved their arms and stuff like that. It's really, really kind of petty to call it a disruption.
If that's a disruption, if that's a disruption, then I can't even imagine the mentality that considers that a disruption. It'd be like watching, I don't know, the Teletubbies and regarding that as being just too intense. Too intense. Just so much going on.
You ever watch the Hitchhiker's Guide movie when they land on the Planet with the Vogons, and every time one of them says something about expressing "I think," and they get hit in the face with a shovel.
Yeah.
It's that kind of feels like what happened there. No, you're not allowed to think. Thinking is bad. Whap. In my opinion, whap.
I have a thought. Whap.
Yeah.
Disruption.
And I'm referring to the movie because I think more people probably saw the movie than heard the radio show or read the books, or all the various incarnations of that particular story. I think that was also in the books. I don't remember if it was in the radio show, but that struck me as such an apt description of sort of the institutionalism of various ideologies. We have decided that this is the way it is, and you must not think beyond that. It's just that might be the root of interpreting having a thought as equating to being a disruption.
Mm-hmm. And I think that this is a good place because we're moving on in an hour and a half. So Brian, I have some final thoughts to usher us out.
Okie dokie.
And I have no idea what you've been doing while me and Hannah have been going back and forth, because I've been seeing a lot of smiling going on.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. A lot of smiling of the Doge character.
According to Edie Brickell and the New Bohemians, which means I've just dated myself, that makes Brian religion.
Smiling?
Yes, it's from a song that came out during the late 80s, early 90s. One of the lines was, "Religion is a smile on a dog."
Thou shalt not worship
So he's
false
the Doge.
doges.
Yes.
Okay, all
Check
right.
this out.
Yes, the negative sum game. I talked about it during my She for He lecture at Simon Fraser University. When we recognize that a problem affects men equally or even more than women, we don't see it as more important, but less. If a serial killer kills 10 women, he's worse, more terrifying, more horrifying, more evil than if he kills 10 women and 10 men. Something about targeting women and presenting women as targets because they're women turns off our rational faculties, turns someone else's problem into our problem. And then we construct a solution and beat the world with that solution until it becomes its own problem. For a while, I thought that observation was unfortunate, to say the least. We care so much less for men than women that when we recognize men are vulnerable to issues, domestic violence, war, meteor strikes, we stop caring about those issues. We even go so far as to say that people who bring up men's vulnerabilities are excusing or apologizing for those issues. But then I realized that's exactly what we want, or what we should want. We should want to think rationally about problems, not in terms of hysterical brute force narratives, but giving careful consideration to how to approach them and intervene without doing harm. Men's issues, recognition of men's vulnerabilities, has this amazing power to turn people's brains back on. And now, more than ever, we need that. We need to think clearly again. Men's issues are the missing link, the secret switch that turns on the rational parts of the human heart. They are not a problem, but a solution, a solvent washing away irrationality and leaving behind cooperation, reconciliation, and careful consideration of the facts. I don't just believe that men's issues are important. I believe they elevate us. Recognizing them makes us better people, more compassionate, more nuanced in our thinking, more complete in our conclusions. Recognizing men's vulnerabilities makes us all better people. And if you believe that too, support us bringing the message of respecting men's human dignity to the world. www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Together, we can build a rational and respectful solution.